This is TWiT. So, Elon Musk clearly buys Twitter because he... Why, Jeff? I mean, initially I thought, oh, he's trolling us. It's a pump and dump, as I said. Obviously, there's more than that. You don't spend $43 billion of other people's money unless you really have a plan. Why does... Is he a free speech advocate? Is that really what it's all about? I don't think so. Oh, Jeff, you're muted.
Well, he's not
I think
an
it's male
effective
ego.
one.
It's male ego?
It's male ego is primarily the reason.
So when Jeffrey Ellison was competing with Scott McNeely to have the tallest yacht, that was cool, okay? That was fine. But now it's like, who can have the rocket to the moon? Who can have the Washington Post?
Yeah, he also likes to cause trouble. He likes to have attention. He likes all that. I mean, but what I was saying before the break is that, and by the way, imagine right now Mark Zuckerberg sitting back saying, "You thought you didn't like me? You got a problem with me?
I
take
think
me back."
This is
I nearly tweeted something on Monday, like, congratulations to Mark Zuckerberg for no longer being the most detested platform CEO.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's
And
true.
in fact, I think there's an opportunity. But you're going to think I'm crazy here, but it won't be the first time. I think there is an opportunity for Facebook and others, Reddit and others, to come along and say, what he's doing to free speech, we don't agree with. This is what free speech means to us. This is what quality speech means to us.
Well,
there's an opportunity.
The political right in the U.S. is celebrating this. They see him as a hero. Sean
because
Hannity,
they want to attack everybody and not be stopped for doing so.
Sean Hannity's Twitter account made its triumphant return to Twitter, pretending that it has anything to do with Elon. And not deleting the tweet that got them in trouble in the first place.
Yes.
So the conservatives say this is victory. Is it a victory for them? Remember, Elon Musk, somebody tweeted Elon Musk stood 6 hours to shake Barack Obama's hand.
He likes power. He wants to be around
It's
power.
just power. It's not about politics.
If the way the wind's blowing is, the Republican Party could be back in charge of two of the houses, both houses of the Congress after the midterms. And if that were to happen, he would be positioning himself really well if he unbanned all the banned right-wing and far-right people.
Oh, my gosh. When does this deal close vis-a-vis the next election?
November. October, November.
Now, I don't think so. It's not that Elon's political, but he is a businessman, right? So is he trying to do what's good for his business? Other businesses?
We don't think he's necessarily. The evidence that he's actually good at stuff is actually really slim. And I think one of the problems we have with like American mythology is like, oh, well, if the person has a lot of money, they must have somehow merited it in a way. And that's repeatedly shown to be a fallacy. And I think it's, here's a very large exhibit A that isn't necessarily true. But at a certain point, when you have resources, you have gravitational pull for other resources because you have power and people want to be in the orbit of that power, and money has interest in compounding and stuff. Like, there's a certain point where you have escape velocity, where if you've managed to fail your way up, you're going to keep going up because the physics don't allow you to get clipped very effectively.
By the way, I want to apologize.
I mean, that's all that you can say for sure.
I want to apologize. I confused Sean Hannity with Tucker Carlson. I don't know why. It's Tucker.
I don't know why you would do that.
It's Tucker Carlson who's back, not Sean Hannity. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Cathy. I want to make sure that gets corrected as quickly as possible. This is the animated GIF that a Tucker Carlson fan posted in response to Tucker's "We're back." Okay, there you go.
Well, no, I think we just have to evaluate things more carefully, and like everybody, take a deep breath and take a look, and let's understand what is the reality before us, which is. I'm sure there's things he can do competently, so I can't completely say he's a doorknob, but like we may be presuming too much, especially when he's obviously wrong in terms of his how he articulates free speech, which no, that's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. So even crediting the business decisions isn't necessarily the thing that we need to do, especially given that sometimes the things he does on the business thing is cheap, like with all the SEC troubles. So I think we shouldn't just overly credit it, but at the same time not necessarily underestimate him either, because even if he accidentally falls into more and more power, more and more resources, such as the reality that we're dealing with.
Ishan, who, of course, we've quoted a couple of times, former CEO of Reddit, has a new tweet thread today, in which he talks a little bit about this whole issue and how difficult it is to do this kind of moderation, and specifically talks about free speech. Everyone knows this implicitly because, quote, "we will defeat spam bots" is actually a curtailment of free speech. Spam bots are expressing someone's view. He also says it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Here's another misconception people often make. Perfectly reasonable person A holds and expresses viewpoint X, okay? Crazy or volatile person B also holds and expresses viewpoint X quite loudly. B gets banned. A then believes that viewpoint X is being censored. It's not the case. It's how you say it, not what you say. Is that accurate? Is that the right way to moderate a platform like this? And can Elon do something like this? Is that what he means by free speech? No.
I don't think this is a fully fleshed out, coherent view of free speech because it's not well tethered to what we already know about free speech. So you could make some arguments to say under current First Amendment law in America, I think X, Y, and Z doesn't make sense. Here's why, and here's how it should be different. And you could, I don't know if I'd agree, but you could probably intelligently make a cogent argument for why or how things should be different. That's not what he's doing. He's sort of like stomping his feet and denying that gravity exists. Like, it's not new. He's not the new expert to just all of a sudden show up and say, at last, I will think about the things that everybody has just been neglecting all these years. It's not how it works. It's not how any of this works. And oh my gosh, in this space, all around, regulators, billionaires, everybody, just stop and take stock and figure out how things work, because it's all new ground and we need to, because if we're not careful, we're going to break stuff and we're going to be really sad when it's all broken and gone.
Cathy, I was just prompted by something you said earlier just a moment ago, which was, I think there might be a lies to reality ratio that determines how rich you can get. And so if your ratio is too high, you were Theranos and Elizabeth, I'm blanking out her last name. Holmes, thank you. So her reach exceeded her grasp by too much. It's not totally implausible what Theranos could have done. It seems like it might be beyond current capabilities. And you have Steve Jobs, right, whose lies to reality ratio sometimes got bigger or smaller, but executed. And Elon Musk, somewhere in there, he has audacious things that he says that are easily not backed by verifiable information. So they're not necessarily lies, but exaggeration that have helped him amass these fortunes. And he's always willing to push up against that line as far as possible, but then deliver enough. So I kind of think that he doesn't have that same thing going with Twitter that he did with Tesla. Like, Tesla arguably pushed the world closer to electric cars faster because Elon is willing to disregard environmental regulation and workplace regulation, work hours, SEC rule. Like, there's a whole litany of things. There's these allegations of racial discrimination in his plants. There's all kinds of things that he disregarded in order to push this technology further and get us electric cars faster. So you can say, well, it's reasonable he's the richest person in the world because he has pushed the entire economy of the world closer to electric cars, but we had to deal with all this stuff. And on the Twitter side, it's like, well, it's all abuse. Like, what is it that he's going to do that's going to push the world to a better place in spite of all the abuse he causes and inspires? I don't see what it is.
Yeah, I don't see a value add. I mean, to your first point, I might also say, what you were like, is there a ratio? And I might say, can we control that ratio for gender? Because I'm not entirely sure the standards are quite the same. There may be certain things of like, I don't know, really, like Jeff was saying, or he basically said as much, like, it's boys with toys and like, oh, well, boys will be boys and stuff like that. And they're, well, of course, he can't help himself. So, he's gonna, infringe a few work rules, environmental rules. Like, that's just who he is. I mean, because we did that with Donald Trump for 4 years as well. Oh, that's how he is. And our tolerance for the intolerable, I think, may need some tweaking. And it's not to say that we should have law that is overly punitive or no mercy or anything like that. But I think this idea of too big to fail, too big to punish, too big to, hold to the same standards that everybody else is something that I think that's something that, if regulators would like to pay attention to, is I think we've got some really big structural problems with how we organize our society, and our law reflects it. Our issues, Twitter is the canary that's tweeting away the warning of what is going on. That this is happening is sort of like, hang on, I think we have problems because he could be doing this to Twitter, but he could be doing this to in a whole bunch of other contexts, and none of them would be good. But I think because it's interfacing with speech and expression and the ability for our community to hold itself together and talk to each other, that there's this particular kind of pain that will come out of essentially what's recklessness. And, the recklessness may hurt him, but the rest of us are going down with him. And that's a problem because he can absorb the fall much better than the rest of us can.
Derek Thompson writes in The Atlantic that Elon could actually be good for Twitter. Unlike the board, he actually uses Twitter and actually likes Twitter.
Another Atlantic hot take.
Which makes him a candidate to fix it.
No, for a couple of reasons. And one of the things that I want to praise Twitter for, at least historically, is Twitter has been unique. And at its best moments, one of the reasons that it tended to grow and improve was because it was very responsive to its users. And I think one of my favorite things that I don't think I'm making up, I don't think it's apocryphal, is even the way we do the ats being hyperlinked and the hashtags turning into hyperlinks was, I think, a Google engineering essentially looking at the lexicological behavior of its users and saying, oh, this seems to be how people address
Twitter
each other.
Yes.
Yeah,
Not
and
Google.
they recognized that that's what people were doing.
Yeah, Chris
and
Messina
built a
added
tool.
the hashtag, and then Twitter said, oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And the
so
sign somebody else
and
did.
to build the hyperlinks around it. Like it looked at what the users were doing and built responsive design to what the users were doing. And that's Twitter at its best. That's any platform at its best. When you look at your user community and you build the tools that they need. And so he doesn't, because yes, he's a user and yes, he has his own personal this, that, or the other thing, but he certainly doesn't have an endemic view of like what most of the lived experience would be of any other Twitter user other than the other billionaires. Like it's so exceptional. He can't walk in anybody else's shoes, and he's not interested in understanding who else is in any other user's shoes.
So am I alone on the panel in saying I'm going to wait and see and give him the benefit of the doubt and maybe it'll get better? Or is that just not possible? Jeff, you don't seem like...
Yeah, you're alone.
Get you on Mastodon, buddy.
I do have a Mastodon instance, my very own. So, yeah.
I will tell myself whatever lie I need to sleep at night, but I'm not entirely sure that in the light of day. I think I have a tremendous sense of optimism of a Musk-controlled Twitter, except to the extent that it might somehow manage to be a catalyst for leave him to his crumbling empire and the rest of us will go build something good.